You know the person who stays calm when everything is on fire, the one who can handle bad news without changing their face, the one who makes a joke at exactly the wrong time and somehow it lands, the one who seems oddly prepared for disappointment, and if you get close enough, you notice something else. Not drama, not chaos, just a quiet density behind their eyes, like they are listening to a room that everyone else thinks is silent. People often call this strength, and sometimes it is, but a lot of the time it is something more specific. It is what a nervous system looks like after it has had to become competent at survival for too long. Because when you have been through too much, your mind does not simply move on. It updates its predictions. It changes what it considers normal. It changes what it watches for. It changes what it believes closeness costs. And the strange part is that this can look like maturity from the outside, while feeling like permanent readiness from the inside, like the world is peaceful, but your body never got the memo. And this is the first frame of the episode, simple and unemotional. People who have gone through too much are not broken, they are trained. And training is adaptive until the environment changes and the system keeps running the old program anyway. When your life contains repeated stress, emotional unpredictability, or prolonged periods where you had to hold yourself together without support, the brain learns a particular lesson, not as a philosophy, but as a pattern. Safety is not guaranteed, so preparation becomes the substitute for safety. This is why some people develop hypervigilance without realizing it. The constant scanning, the need to sit facing the door, the subtle counting of exits, the ability to read a mood shift in someone's voice before the sentence ends. And none of that is overthinking in the casual sense. It is a threat detection system doing its job, because the brain is a prediction machine, and pain is a powerful teacher. And once your system learns that danger can arrive through people, through silence, through sudden changes, through disappointment, it starts treating uncertainty itself as a threat, which means it tries to reduce uncertainty fast. And one of the fastest ways to reduce uncertainty is to assume the worst, because the worst is at least a conclusion. It is solid. It gives the mind something to prepare for. This is why catastrophizing is so sticky after chronic stress, not because you love negativity, but because worst-case thinking is the mind's attempt to create control in a world that once felt uncontrollable. And if you have ever wondered why you can be strangely calm in a real crisis, but spiraling over a small, ambiguous text message, this is why. The crisis is clear, ambiguity is not, and systems trained by chaos often prefer clear pain over unclear peace. But survival training does not only make you alert, it often makes you independent in ways that look impressive and feel lonely. Because depending on people is not just a social preference, it is a nervous system calculation. And if your early experiences taught you that support can disappear, that needs can be punished, that vulnerability can be used against you, you may grow into a person who does not ask, does not lean, does not want to burden anyone. And again, from the outside, this reads as competence, high standards, self-sufficiency, while inside it often feels like a constant background contract. I will handle it alone so I never have to be disappointed. This is where you see the paradox that confuses everyone. The same person can be intensely loyal to others and strangely distant from their own needs. They will show up for you at 3 in the morning, but go quiet when you ask what they need. Not because they do not trust you as a person, but because their system learned a long time ago that needing is risky. And the body does not update beliefs with logic. It updates beliefs with repetition and safety over time. And in this same paradox, you will also find emotional numbness, because when a system has had to endure too much feeling for too long, it sometimes protects itself by turning down the volume, not as a choice, but as a conservation strategy, a kind of internal budget cut. And that numbness can be misread as coldness, when it is actually exhaustion, because feeling is work. And after prolonged stress, the system starts prioritizing function over depth, which is why some people become too self-aware, always analyzing, always narrating, always explaining their reactions like a commentator, because thinking about feeling is safer than feeling itself. And if you grew up in a context where emotions were dangerous, the mind learns to intellectualize as an escape route. None of this makes you dramatic, it makes you coherent. Now here is the part people rarely name out loud. There is grief underneath this adaptation. Not just grief for what happened, but grief for who you were before your system had to become so strategic. Grief for the version of you that trusted easily, that did not rehearse conversations, that did not scan faces for microsignals, that could rest without earning it, that could be soft without paying for it later. And this grief can be invisible even to you, because it is not always attached to a single event. It is attached to a slow identity shift, a before and after that was never officially announced. And yet, this is also where something real can appear, that is not motivational and not forced, which is that many people who endure significant hardship do not only become guarded, they become precise. They develop an unusual clarity about what matters. They become allergic to performative relationships. They recognize safe people faster. They cherish peace because they know the cost of chaos. And sometimes they experience what researchers call post-traumatic growth, not as a romanticization of pain, but as a real pattern where priorities sharpen, relationships deepen, and appreciation for ordinary moments becomes more vivid because the nervous system knows the alternative. The important thing is to hold both truths without turning either into a personality label. You can be resilient and still be tired. You can be high-functioning and still be carrying a load. You can be fine and still be operating from threat logic. So what do you do with this? No grand makeover, no identity speeches, just leverage. You start by learning your system's signatures, because authorship begins when the pattern becomes predictable, and predictable is regulating. The same way a familiar map calms you down even if the terrain is still hard. Notice what your system does after social contact, after conflict, after success, after a quiet day that should feel good but somehow feels unsafe. Notice what triggers the old program, and instead of asking, "What is wrong with me?" ask the better question, "What is my system trying to prevent right now?" Embarrassment, rejection, disappointment, loss of control, being trapped, being misunderstood? Because that question converts shame into data, and data creates options. Then you make one small environmental adjustment that lowers baseline threat, because many mind problems are actually load problems. Too many notifications, too much comparison, too much fragmentation, not enough recovery buffers, and a system trained by stress will always become harsher when it is overloaded. And finally, you practice one boundary that protects your nervous system without turning you into a wall. A pause before you say yes, a slower reply, "let me get back to you," not because you are fragile, but because you are rebuilding trust with your own capacity. Because the goal is not to become invulnerable, the goal is to become accurate, and accuracy is what lets you choose rather than react. If you have been through too much, your adaptations are not proof that you are damaged. They are proof that your system was trying to keep you alive. And the work now is not to hate the strategy, but to update it, because a strategy that once protected you can become a cage when the danger is no longer the same. And that update begins the moment you stop treating your survival responses like character flaws and start treating them like learnable patterns.